Hello, Year 11, and welcome to Week 5 and your descriptive writing homework task. You're very lucky you've got yet another video from me, Mr. Boff, where I'm going to go through the planning and, in fact, actually the pre-planning stages of the process, our full structure, the descriptive writing cycle, provided to us by AQA, although we've really run with it in our own particular unique way. And also in this video, there's going to be a whole series of marvelous sentence scaffolds for you to use. So loads and loads of help and assistance in this video. At the start, we're also going to tackle a few little issues we've noticed cropping up in our classes as well. Just tackle a few misconceptions. So the non-negotiables are golden rules of descriptive writing. Number one, writing in third person, not first person. There's the example. Making sure we're writing in complete sentences unless we are really intentionally and clearly intentionally using a fragment sentence, and the sentence scaffolds will support us with that. And also, and this is going to bring me on to our kind of main misconception focus this week, writing in the past tense throughout. So, writing in the past tense. Why does it matter? Well, we frame our descriptive writing pieces as a kind of moment retold. And often we have an aspect of our descriptive pieces that features a memory. And again, because it's a moment retold, and often we include a memory in the form of a flashback, we actually go right back in time, we need to be writing in the past tense. So actually what the past tense does is it kind of anchors our reader, and it allows our writing to feel very controlled, very complete, and very reflective. It also allows us, more effectively than if we were trying to write in the present tense, it allows us to convey a tone of nostalgia, regret, perhaps emotional distance that goes down really, really well with the examiner. Okay, so keeping and maintaining that consistent past tense is really important. What's often happening, though, is that you as writers often start strong in the past tense, but you can slip into the present without noticing. So, just an example of this error: the house stood alone and the wind is howling through the gaps. House stood alone, past tense, the wind is howling, accidental slip into the present tense. And what these slippages in time and tense consistency result in is a break in the reader's immersion in your story, their kind of full and total involvement in your story, and also the time frame becomes confusing. When exactly is this happening? Is it all happening in the past? Oh no, well, the wind is howling. Is that happening now? When is the wind howling happening in relation to the house standing alone or being stood alone? So we need to be consistent in our tense, and to be even more precise about a little error which a number of us have been noticing in our writing, which I think is related to our struggles around maintaining the past tense. It's that we're often struggling to use present participles, that is, words often that end in ing, so ing. We're kind of sometimes treating them as verbs and shifting them into the past tense unnecessarily. So let me give you some examples. Okay, and then we'll come back to the sort of the key idea. So let me just read this sentence to you. Students often, when we say you need to shift everything to the past tense, write something like, the sun shone across a vast expanse of ocean, reminded him of nature's beauty. And so what they've done is they've created two finite verbs, shone and reminded, when actually the correct version would be, the sun shone across a vast expanse of ocean, reminding him of nature's beauty. And the fundamental misunderstanding here is that students are often not realizing that present participles, so in this case, reminding, doesn't show tense. It shows connection. They are used to describe, we use present participles when we're using them like this, to describe an ongoing or accompanying action. Okay, so an action that's continuing, okay, it can be continuing, but in the past, or it's accompanying, it's going with another action. So here, if we look at the correct version, the sun shone across a vast expanse of ocean, reminding him of nature's beauty. The reminding is going on at the same time. It's accompanying, okay, the shone, which is the main verb. And of course, shone is fine. That's marked for the past tense. If we put reminded, it kind of suggests there's like a new additional event going on, rather than, which is what we want in the correct version, reminding him of nature's beauty. It's part of the same moment. It's part of the same moment where the sun shone across a vast expanse of ocean. So we've got to be really careful. And I put a table together for you to really kind of see this in action. I'm also, again, wish I could do this in real life, going to reduce the size of my head. Right, okay, so the main verb, look, the wind howled, shaking the windows. It wouldn't make sense to write the wind howled, shook the windows. That doesn't make sense. Shaking the windows is fine because it's adding detail happening at the same time. She turned, okay, fine, howled, turned, mark for past tense, turned. She turned, smiling as she went. Smiling, it's happening at the same time as the main verb, turned. The rain hammered, not the rain is hammering. That would be obviously marked for the present tense. The rain hammered the roof, dripping through the cracks. Okay? The dripping is just ongoing and it's associated with the main verb, which is the rain that hammered through the roof or hammered the outside of the roof. So it's perfectly possible to use the ing form of a word, present participle, because it doesn't mark the present tense. Think of it as just hanging on to adding simultaneous detail or action to the main verb in the sentence. And in these examples, howled, turned, and hammered, those are the main verbs. Okay? Shaking, smiling, dripping is just adding additional and simultaneous detail or action. Okay, so be really careful with that. We don't want sentences like the one that we can see here. The sun shone across a vast expanse of ocean, reminded him of nature's beauty. That doesn't make sense grammatically. No problem with saying reminding there, with using reminding, okay? Because the main verb in the sentence is in the past tense. Right. So, some very quick reminders. Make sure we are checking every verb. Check those main verbs. Think, is it happening now or did it happen? Another good way of kind of ensuring we stay in the past tense is to anchor your paragraph really early on with a past tense verb. The lights flickered. Remember flashbacks, and for example, today we are going to be using a flashback. The flashback can still use the past tense. They're in effect the kind of past within the past. And every time you read back a sentence, think of a timeline in your head. Is it taking place in the past, or has it somehow awkwardly and mistakenly slipped into the now, into the present? Okay, so I'm going to expand the size of my head. There I am. Right, now, why the image in your exam preparation booklet is dangerous. Okay, this is really key. So, it's an image that looks perfect for description. It's quite an evocative, entertaining, interesting looking image. Okay, got lonely house, full moon, twisted trees, all that. But that's the problem. It really invites us, this image, to write something predictable. And the chances are that if you hadn't have watched this video, that we would have things like the wind howled through the trees, the door creaked open, a shadow moved inside, the moon watched like an eye. All these really stock, cliched phrases. These are kind of phrases, the sort of language that is going to appear in probably any sort of horror story, and examiners have read them thousands of times. We want to ask ourselves the question, what can I say about this image that nobody else or very few people will think to write? So we want some originality. We're not looking at that thinking axe murderer, violence, stabbing, horror story, gore, ghosts, things that go bump in the night. We don't want a general kind of woo Halloweeny type story. No, thank you. Also, please don't make sure that you don't clip that little noise that I just made. Right, okay. Generating ideas. So, same process, but we're not going to go with a daft Halloween, kind of jack-o'-lantern load of nonsense. We're not rewriting some horror story. We're going to do something different. Now, we go through this 4-step process, and this is before we do any kind of planning. It's just how do we get ideas? And really important this week, how do we have some interesting ideas that other people aren't immediately going to be using? Okay, the ideas that are just for me, ideas that, are original. So observe, what can we see? Like literally what's in the image. Associate. What ideas, feelings are we going to associate with this image? Then we're thinking, right, okay, once we've done that, we need to kind of sequence those thoughts, feelings, and ideas. What order are the events going to appear in? And then what tone do we want? What mood and atmosphere do we wish to create? And I think we want to go way beyond just trying to have something that's kind of frightening. The chances are, as I said to my class when I was discussing this homework, the chances are you're not going to really effectively frighten your reader, really unsettle and horrify your reader, in the exam, in where you get 45 minutes in total to do this section of the paper, but 38 once you finish planning and you count, proofreading. You can't do it in 38 minutes. We want something we can accomplish successfully in 38 minutes. We're not Shirley Jackson. We're not going to be able to write in 38 minutes something to rival The Haunting of Hill House. So let's try for something else. Let's try a different direction. So here are my ideas. Here's how I went from the image to the plan. So observe. What can I see? We've got a weathered wooden house, and I'm going to go, right, it's kind of the edge of town. Maybe there's nothing else around. Okay? Right, bare trees. They're kind of leaning in. The branches look like veins going almost into the association stage there. We've obviously got moonlight, got the moon in the image. The grass looks rather overgrown. The path is kind of cracked and uneven. There's no light in the windows. The house is in darkness. There's just stillness. There's just shadow. Okay, that's what I can see. It's nighttime, moon, trees, no leaves on them, weathered house, all in darkness. Shadowy. Okay, overgrown grass, cracked path. Fine. Right, now, and it's really, I even ended up doing that a little bit in the observe, because the tendency is start, when you've done this lots of times, to want to go to the associate phase. Right, I'm going to go, there's emptiness. But essentially what happened in my brain, I was like, why a house is empty? Okay, sometimes because someone's been murdered. But I don't want to go in that direction. People abandon their houses or are forced out of their houses because of economic decline. You get a ghost town or something like a ghost town where there's no one around, empty houses, if let's say the main employer in an area is a particular, factory, and that shuts down, there's no reason for people to live there anymore. People move away, and you get these kind of abandoned towns. You particularly get this in parts of America. I'm imagining silence. I'm looking at that thinking there's going to be silence. And the silence for me is going to feel like an absence, like a lack, okay, of people, of work, of community. I'm saying work because I'm associating that with economic decline. There's no work in this town. People have moved away. It's now this kind of abandoned, forgotten location. The moon here is actually kind of shining a light. I know the moon doesn't produce light itself. It's reflecting from the sun, but there we go. But the moon's light, if you will, allow me that kind of poetic description, exposes what's left behind rather than things being hidden. And also, and I love this anyway, I find this really interesting and really evocative, the idea of nature reclaiming what we leave behind. So I've seen loads and loads of like brilliant pictures and videos on YouTube of people. I really like videos where people kind of visit abandoned locations and you can see how trees are kind of growing through the building and there's ivy crawling all over the building, those sorts of things. I like all of that. So nature is reclaiming what we couldn't maintain any longer, or what we've kind of lost interest in, we've had to abandon because of, for let's say, economic reasons. So actually, for me then, to go with something that I don't think other, students are going to be doing, I'm thinking fragility, loss, the passage of time, the way nature reclaims. I'm not thinking terror. No axe murderers, no, slasher movie type stuff, no things going bump in the night, no ghosts and ghoulies, okay, nothing like that, okay? Right, sequence. Wide view. Always got to start with that wide view. I'm thinking almost like my mind's like a sort of camera as I'm doing this. Okay, like a film camera. Think cinematography. Wide view. Town's edge. Forgotten house. Beneath the moon. Stillness. Decay. Right. Flashback. I've said about economic decline. We're going to have a flashback to life before abandonment. And I want kind of stress, anxiety. I'm not going to just like really boringly go, so and so's lost his job, she's lost her job, they're going to have to move out. That's going to be boring. I want it kind of ghostly echoes of raised voices, unpaid bills, the sharp knock at the door of the debt collector or the bailiff, those sorts of things. Okay. Then the reality of the decline, the sense of abandonment, the whole town being abandoned, everything kind of hollowed out, closed shops, the sense of silence sort of spreading throughout this empty town. And then finally, nature reclaiming. So ivy, moss, the wind kind of passing through the house, those sorts of things. And almost a sense of peace, actually. After we leave, nature reclaims and brings this sense of peace. Okay, we've got to choose our tone carefully. If we're going with all of this quite heavy, intense subject matter, okay, we're not aiming for a comic or light-hearted tone. So it's going to be melancholic, it's going to be somber, it's going to be reflective because we're focusing on time and memory and loss. But it's also going to be realistic and socially observant. What I mean by that is we're thinking about economic decline. If there is a haunting, it's, the way that debt and economic decline and unemployment haunts people. That's the real kind of spectre or ghost in this story, or in this description, I should say. It's not some kind of like poltergeist or, apparition going around in a sheet. And then finally, at the end, particularly, it's going to be more calm, or it's going to be calmer, sorry. It's going to be more naturalistic. That nature is kind of quietly reclaiming and even undoing some of our kind of human ambitions. Okay? So it might look a little bit like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wide view of the town's edge, flashback to the past, present reality of the decline, nature reclaiming. Okay? That's my plan. 4-paragraph plan. 1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting, lots of variety, really allows me to kind of show off what I can do. So now we're on to the writing cycle. Inform, describe, reflect, react, connect. Pause the video here and you can remind yourself of what those various elements mean. And remember, this is a cycle that repeats itself paragraph by paragraph. It's a cycle within each paragraph. Okay? I'm just going to pause the video there and I will be back. And he's back after probably a small millennial pause. There we go. Okay. So what have we got? We've got paragraph 1 and the wide view of the town's edge. Okay. So the kind of edge of the town with obviously the house as part of it. If you sat there going, Mr. Boff, you fraud, why are you writing about a town? It doesn't show a town. You need to remember, of course, it's a stimulus image. It's not the be-all and the end-all, to quote from Macbeth. It is just a stimulus image. So we can add details that obviously fit within it. And it's a house. It's not unreasonable to think that maybe this house is on the edge of a town. That's okay. So, inform. The town was a relic. Okay, nice little use of the word relic there. Alone, unmourned and forgotten, the house. Okay. Then we describe, so we're describing the roof and the sagging of the roof. There we go. Reflect. This is an interesting one. No sudden bloody tragedy. Just, okay, we're thinking there about the kind of slow, grinding decay of, economic decline or something like that. Next one. Personal fiefdom. Now, let me quickly explain. This is, again, I've written this one. I just quickly explain fiefdom in this context. So even the creatures who treated the town as their personal fiefdom, so like personal domain or dominion, like the area that they controlled. So I wanted to convey that idea that the creatures who normally, let's be honest, wild creatures steer clear of human beings because we're pretty scary as a species. Okay, they've all gone. So the animals, okay, the wild creatures are kind of reclaiming it and are comfortable moving around the town because there's no horrible human beings around. And therefore, it's like their personal fiefdom. They're like kind of kings or lords of the town now. It's obviously metaphorical, but they avoid the house. There's something off and unsettling about the house. So even the creatures, wild animals nearby, seem to instinctively understand or appreciate. And then finally, connect. So now we're kind of into the house itself, which is going to set us up, as any good connect sentence should, with our flashback. Again, Mr. Boff, get your head out of the way. And ideally shrink the size of your head if you can. Right, there we go. So this is the flashback. So we're going back to the past, years earlier. That is signaling that aspect that we're in a flashback. The house had been crowded with noise and heat. Now, I don't want this to seem like a really kind of like lovely, like warm, everything's kind of great. We're not going back to that sort of flashback. We're going, if you put yourself in the kind of the scene, we're going to a flashback where there's the tension, the anxiety, the anger and frustration of a family struggling to make ends meet, a family that ultimately will be forced out of the house, hence why it's now abandoned. The kettle is screaming on the hob, man's voice rose above, everything is, arguments and those sorts of things. And then this scorched into the kitchen table. I basically, in my head, I was thinking, how can I convey a sense of like rush and panic when there's a knock at the door? The debt collector's coming round. You owe this much on your gas bill or whatever. Well, I imagine if someone was cooking food and they hear the door go, they don't want to leave the food to burn. So they might, without thinking, quickly take the pan off the hob and just stick it down on the table. But the pan's already really hot and it's going to leave a perfect scorch mark in the table. Okay. And this is what we mean about showing, not telling. Showing like the sense of kind of hurry and panic that someone would do that in that kind of panicked, unthinking way. Okay. So that's what I was thinking about with that one. How could they respond with anything other than hissed arguments and, okay, so a little bit of a reflection there. The idea that the couple, the family, there's like real tension and frustration and arguments and difficulties because of debt and unemployment. A knock at the door, then another harder this time. The factory their livelihood was. Okay, we're thinking about what's happened, what's caused the unemployment. The factory closed down, hollowed out. Somewhere between that sound and the silence that followed, the house began to empty. Whatever. Okay, it's up to you. There's lots of different ways of finishing that. Then we go to the present kind of reality. Obviously, this is still all in the past tense, but we've gone like right back into the past, and now we're kind of nearer the present, but still in the past, and we're just describing the town. So we've gone house on the edge of town, right back into the past, where we're describing the kind of arguments and so on, and now we're back into the town itself. These are all relatively straightforward. Everything is perfectly in the past tense. Bearing in mind what I said in the description of kind of some of our issues with present participles, birds that perched on sagging telegraph lines, it shouldn't be sagged there. That would make no sense. Gazed, that's the key verb. Gazed, past tense. Witnessed, shuffled, okay, hung. So was, okay. All of the verbs in this are in the past tense, which is exactly how they should be. And we're describing the kind of bleak reality of the town and the extent of the abandonment and economic decline. And then our final our final paragraph is nature reclaiming the house. And again, I think these are relatively straightforward. The reflect sentence here is similar to the reflect sentence in paragraph 1. Just to explain about that, it's a little bit of a connection. You see where it says no sudden bloody tragedy, just there. And then in the final paragraph, for these things to kind of be more coherent and to make a nice little connection there, this was not a place of ghoulish phantoms. This was just a slow reclamation of. Okay, so I'm kind of signaling subtly to the reader this isn't about ghosts and in that really kind of boring, cliched horror story sort of way. It's actually, in some ways, more unsettling because it's the way that economic tragedy, economic horror, the horror, the haunting of unemployment, the way people are haunted by debt and unemployment, in some ways, that's maybe more frightening and unsettling than, some kind of like ghost or apparition or poltergeist or whatever. Okay. So those are the sentence scaffolds. And when you are done with them all, you'll have a really, really evocative piece of descriptive writing. Please make sure that you are using these sentence scaffolds this week. Obviously, your teacher might give you other sentence scaffolds which override these, but if not, or if you want to go with these, go with these. That's absolutely fine. But make sure that we've got this really kind of controlled, coherent form of writing. And if you do use these sentence scaffolds, we know you're going to be successful. It's not going to limit your creativity. It's actually going to let your creativity flourish. So, final checklist before I wrap up this video. Have you, when you read your work and read it out loud to your mom, dad, grandma, granddad, stepmom, best mate, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, read it out to someone who'll listen, okay? Or just read it out to yourself. Is it in the third person? Are all the sentences complete? Have you consistently used the past tense? Have you made sure you've used the scaffolds in the writing cycle? And also making sure you're ending every single paragraph with a connect sentence. Check your work using that list. If the answer to these is yes, 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 and yes, you've probably done a brilliant job. All right, so happy writing. Enjoy being creative. I hope that this has been helpful as usual, and I look forward to reading your work next week.